I'm frolicking in the wildflowers. I'm smelling all of the wildflowers. Achoo! I'm checking for bugs in the wildflowers. I hope no one sees me in these wildflowers. I'm wild. Yes, I'm wild. For flowers. Wildflowers.
Some of the most important parts of nature are also the wildest ones, the rebels. Rawr. But wildflowers aren't just for cottagecore fantasies and flower crowns. And to help teach us more, we're speaking with Registered Herbalist Savayda Jarone. Hi, Savayda.
Hi.
We're about to talk about wildflowers, and I think that might be your favorite thing.
It absolutely is.
So what exactly makes something a wildflower? What differentiates it from just a normal flower?
I would define a wildflower as something that nature designs and takes care of versus human cultivated and managed flowers. In a farmer's field where dandelions are competing with their crops, it might be pulled up as a weed, whereas a herbalist might look at that same dandelion and see medicine.
Right, like someone maintaining a golf course would see it as a problem, but you see it as an opportunity.
Opportunity and, well, beauty. Like, come on, wildflowers are beautiful.
Yeah.
They add color and, I could say, variety to a landscape.
Such as the beach rose. It's an introduced species in North America with 5 petals, thorns along the stem, and leaves with teeny tiny teeth. When blooming is done, a rose hip forms, which resembles a tomato when ripe. It grows easily along coastlines, and it has loads of edible benefits, but more on that to come.
As your job as a herbalist, how exactly do you go about harvesting for that?
Well, one of the first things on my mind is the ethical aspects of wildcrafting. It's called wildcrafting when we harvest herbs from the wild. So ensuring that I don't damage the population and ideally not take more than about a quarter of any population of plants, and to also harvest where there's an abundance. So those would be my considerations, and of course clean harvest areas. Every week or two there's like a new series of wildflowers that are medicinal appearing. So it's just keeping an eye on the calendar and observing because it can vary from season to season or year to year.
I hear we need to protect our native wildflowers a lot. Obviously, there's a big mix of what was brought here either on purpose or by accident.
Right, yeah, we want to preserve the habitat as it's always been, but with movement, across the globe, we have flowers moving with humans all over the place. We've got native species that have always been here. We've got introduced and naturalized species, and then we've got invasive species. They will, move in and take over, whereas other introduced species of flowers have been here a while and they've naturalized and coexist relatively in balance with the other living things in that habitat. So native species of insects or birds or animals that rely on those native plant species as sustenance. So by taking care of native plants, we're also taking care of other native species that depend upon them. They also support soil health, so they help to prevent soil erosion or degradation. So having a carpet of plants and wildflowers secures the soil.
Do you have a favorite wildflower?
Well, we just happen to be standing next to one of my current favorites.
Oh, really?
Yeah. As a herbalist, I'm seeking wildflowers for their medicinal use, and it just happens that fireweed is the one I'm seeking at the moment. Fireweed is really helpful for the urinary system. It's quite astringent, so it might help if there's like excess urination or bleeding or other types of fluid loss in the body. They taste almost like oolong, like a green tea.
Well, with that, maybe we can make a little tea for ourselves?
Absolutely, let's do it. So this is the fireweed. The main medicine is found in the leaves. However, the flowers are perfectly fine and safe to add to the tea as well, so I like to add them for the aesthetic. And this is called all heal or self-heal.
Ooh.
My favorite way to use this in tea would be for lymph congestions, which means it helps to detox the body of tissue wastes.
I think this is red clover.
Yeah, so it blooms in late May, early June, and then it comes back again in August. So it's called second chance remedy. Another source of that name is its widespread use as a remedy for those with cancer.
What do we got here?
One of the most common and loved wildflowers of Nova Scotia.
Ooh.
Rose. Rose is considered a heart medicine, so helpful for when there's a broken heart.
Oh, I love that.
This plant is called pineapple weed.
Oh.
We could use it for the same things we use chamomile for, so to calm the nerves and to help relax and to sleep. This is chicory. Chicory root is bitter.
Oh.
So we use that to stimulate the liver and digestive functions. We're looking at St. John's wort. This is a really great medicine for the nervous system, and it's been well studied and researched as a support for those with depression. If you roll them around in your finger a little bit, you get this red resin that comes
whoa.
through. Yeah, so that will come through in your tea if you get some of the buds in there as well. This wildflower is called yarrow, and it's named after the ancient war god Achilles, who educated his troop mates to use this plant to heal their wounds. So it's also called soldier's wound wort.
Well, Savayda, this is absolutely stunning. We have a real rainbow concoction of medicines and tasty things. What do you say we give it a try?
Absolutely. Thank you. This was fun.
Yeah, thank you. Cheers.
Cheers. Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Well, you've gotta love a tasty treat to cap off a journey. Just like this little bug. And how can one reflect on flowers without also reflecting on bees? And to talk on that more, let's speak with pollinator expert Kathleen Law.
Hi, Kathleen.
Hi, Luba.
Let's talk bees. We keep hearing save the bees, and I think what everyone thinks of first is honeybees. But the more I learn, that's not really the whole story, is it?
Yeah, when we say save the bees, we mean to protect the over 800 species of bees that are found in Canada. There's over 20,000 across the world.
Wow.
So when we talk about saving the bees, we actually mean the wild bees of Canada.
Okay.
And most of them are actually solitary. They don't live in colonies, they definitely don't live in hives, and most of them live underground.
So wait, are we stepping on bees?
Well, we're on a big rock right now,
Okay,
so
good.
unlikely.
We saved the bees. We did it. Job done. When we're thinking about ways to support our native bee population, how do native wildflowers help with that process?
The relationship between bees and wildflowers has shaped the world that we live in today. We really can't think of bees without thinking of wildflowers. It's a relationship that's evolved over 125 million years, in part love story and part arms race.
Oh, whoa. That's very intense.
It is. Bees need wildflowers because the adult bees drink the nectar and they collect the pollen to feed to their young. Some bees are generous, like bumblebees, which means that they can pollinate lots of different flowers of different sizes and different shapes. Most bees are actually specialists. They emerge as adults from their nest in time with the bloom of the plant that they have a close relationship with. Their size and the flower's shape are meant that they kind of go together like a puzzle. For the wildflowers, this is great because bees are really good at moving pollen around, which means they get pollinated, which means they can reproduce. But they also don't want the bees to eat all of the pollen.
What's threatening our bee population currently?
Certainly, invasive species remove a lot of resources that they rely on. Pesticides, unsurprisingly, because they kill insects and bees are insects. But the two largest threats are probably just the lack of habitat generally, so our shrinking natural spaces, as well as the lack of native flowering plants in the landscape, and climate change.
What is something that we can do then to kind of help support our bee population?
Well, there are two levels that we can address this as individuals. One of them is addressing the big systemic changes, asking people in power to take some concrete action to mitigate and adapt to climate change. But closer at home, we can plant our landscapes with the native wildflowers that bees have these very close relationships with and that they depend on. And it's a great way of turning a pretty garden into a thriving ecosystem where you can really just sit and watch all of these relationships come to life and really appreciate the different species of bees and wasps and butterflies and moths and beetles and all of the life that comes into the garden that you've planted with native plants.
We're all in this together. That's the most important thing I learned today. We rely on wildflowers to heal ourselves and the ecosystem. Wildflowers rely on bees to pollinate, and bees rely on wildflowers for food. And wildflowers rely on people to protect their space. And people rely on wildflowers for little hair accessories. And wildflowers rely on bees to butterfly and save. And bees rely on people to build them little log houses. And wildflowers rely on bees to say hello as they're flying by.